Today on the Rise of the Challenge podcast.
Growing up, I remember having this conversation with my therapist, and I almost fell over. I was so stunned when she said this. When I was growing up, when my dad got home from work, my mom poured him a scotch, and they had a scotch. And I thought that drinking every day was just what you did. That's how you unwind at the end of the day. That's how it's done. That's adulting.
Welcome to the Rise to the Challenge podcast. Joining today, she's an alcohol freedom coach and podcast host. It's Lily Weis. How you doing today, Lily?
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
We're so excited to have you on the show to talk about your rise to the challenge. What we like to do with all of our guests is go right to the beginning. Talk about where you're from and what you like doing growing up.
I am from Pride of the Prairie, Central Illinois, Decatur, Illinois. I think at one point we were the soybean capital of the world. Not just the United States, but the world. I don't think we still are, but when I was there, that's what was going on.
What about that area seems special to you? Something that like you remember growing up doing that's like unique to that area?
Wow. And it was a simpler time, I guess, 60 years ago when kids still walked to school. I mean, maybe we shouldn't have been, but we were still walking to school. And I'm in fact meeting in DC this October, 4 of us that grew up together starting in grade 1. So I think it must be the people now that I think about it. It must be the people because we're all awesome and still friends and supportive and loving and all of that. Yeah.
Was that
people?
Was that something that was a main focus as you were growing up, was to be around people, enjoy outdoors, enjoy doing the same things together?
Oh, yeah. This was the era when your mom gave you a snack after school and then sent you outside. And then all the moms had dinner bells or whistles. And you would have like, you knew, oh, that was Mrs. Nichols's whistle and it was time for her kid, and 3 kids would shoot out of whatever we were playing. Yeah, we were outside all the time. Absolutely. And, walking to school every day, freezing in the winter.
I can't imagine. Like, even when I was growing up, I'm like, get me out of the snow. I mean, I'm in Missouri, and so Midwest, you never know what the weather is going to be. Like, you could wake up one day and it could be snowing. The next day it could be 90 degrees outside. You just don't know nowadays.
You don't know. You really don't.
Did you have anyone that was a huge motivator or inspiration in your life?
Oh, wow. I remember someone asking me that for something I was signing up for. And I went with Golda Meir, who was she was prime minister of Israel. And back then I had a much simpler view of Israel than I certainly do now. But I just thought that was so cool that she came from the Holocaust and then ended up running a country. Now that's badass.
Yes.
Like, sadly, she's gone. So, if you could get her on, that would be a great Rise to the Challenge show. That is quite an accomplishment. So I really love that. And then there was Mrs. Glenn in 3rd grade who traveled all the time. And I have such a love of travel.
Did you travel a lot as a kid, or with your family or with friends?
Yeah, I guess probably more than most. My dad was very adventurous. So we would go on a big vacation every summer. And that would, Disney World and up north fishing. And we went to DC to see the White House and out west. Yeah, definitely. And my parents were always traveling. So that was a big deal for me.
Is that something you do now, is travel as much, because that was such a big part of your life growing up?
Oh, I have wanderlust for sure. For sure. Yes. The goal is to go back to South Africa 2025, I think. I want to go back and do it. It's a self-drive safari. Super fun.
That sounds like a lot of fun. But why 2025? Is there a certain gives you enough time to really plan it out?
Just I've got so much going on right now, and that's a big trip. It takes a long time to get there. So that's like a 3 week break. I've got a mom who is at end of life, and she's the wild card. And you just don't want to be making plans that are super expensive
Yep.
when you don't know if she's in Kansas City, Missouri, near you,
Okay.
probably somewhere. So you just don't know when you need to run over to Kansas City for a minute.
Yes. Sometimes we're asked that fun question growing up. What is that dream job that we're always wanting? When you were growing up, what was that dream job that you were wanting?
It's so funny to me because I always said a lawyer. And I will never forget Mr. Bickus, who I adored, absolutely adored him. I said I wanted to be a lawyer. I don't know, I was like 6. And he said, "Oh, you're a girl. No one will ever hire you." Like,
Oh,
I know. It was real, people. People said the stuff you're supposed to only say in your head out loud in the 60s and 70s. And he forever felt bad about that as time went on and he realized what he had done. But yeah, that's what he said. But now I think, oh, that would be the worst job ever.
I mean, I think a lot of people look at it on TV shows and they see, oh, it's such a cool job or something. And then they really get into it. And it's like TV shows kind of fame it in a way and kind of make it look spectacular than what really goes on. Did that kind of momentum when that teacher said that comment, did it kind of make you think, I'm gonna prove this person wrong? I'm gonna go out and do whatever I want or whatever I tell myself I'm gonna do and make it happen.
Oh, I had an oh yeah, watch me kind of attitude from the get-go. And what's super interesting is I am adopted, and I'm very close now to my full biological sister who I met 3 years ago. She has the same attitude.
So you guys are definitely sisters.
We're
Yeah,
definitely
definitely sisters.
yeah, it's so interesting how much of our personalities are the same because we didn't grow up together.
Mhm. With growing up, going into after high school, what was that path for you? Did you go into college? Did you go right into the workforce? Where did the path lead you?
The path led me to Southern Illinois University. I was a proud Saluki, and I was a computer major, which kicked my butt, but I loved it. That was a just watch me moment. They said that if you got a C in CS 202, which was the first course, that you would never graduate as a computer major. And I was like, oh yeah, watch me.
Why computers major? Like what out of all the degrees, what brought you excitement towards that way?
It's just how my brain works. It was one of those things that just clicked. I was choosing between taking another math class or computer science in the general studies. And I took the computer course, didn't know a thing about it. And I struggled with it, but I was drawn to it. It was that kind of puzzle that you don't want to give up on, even though it hurts. I'm going to get to the bottom of this. Yeah, I loved my years doing the computer work.
I feel like computer science, I would love to have taken a class on that. I'm just fascinated by like the technology aspect because I look at it and I'm like, I can't figure this out. If it's like trying to like do computer or like data stuff, all that kind of things, it's like now with every job, it's like if you know that, you are excelling in some way because it's so helpful nowadays.
Yes. Yeah. It's been a skill that has served me in all my various careers.
Were you more focused on the school aspect, or did that ever play a role with like a personal life or like the things outside of school education with being in college? That's usually the time where a lot of people kind of experiment and kind of learn more about themselves as an individual.
I was more experimenting with drugs and alcohol. I was not really experimenting with Zen or Buddhism or anything like that. I was definitely a party girl who I didn't drink during the semesters, but boy, when that semester was over, I was hitting it hard.
Did you ever have that influence before you got to college, or was it like just the timing and everything? That was where it happened.
I think that growing up, I remember having this conversation with my therapist, and I almost fell over. I was so stunned when she said this. When I was growing up, when my dad got home from work, my mom poured him a scotch and they had a scotch. And I thought that drinking every day was just what you did. That's how you unwind at the end of the day. That's how it's done. That's adulting. And of
Mhm.
course, that's what you see on movies and
Yeah.
TV and commercials, ads, everything is out there that just normalizes everyday drinking as safe and okay. And I just thought this is just how it is. And I believed that alcohol equaled fun.
What age did you start drinking or doing drugs?
Now, see, I didn't start till I was 13. So
Oh, was it more of not trying to get caught at that young of age, or was it kind of like you saw that your family was doing it every day and it's like, I thought that was the norm?
I just thought that was the norm. All the kids were drinking.
Do you feel that your parents knew what you were doing, or did you kind of hide it?
Absolutely not.
They
And
didn't know.
no, no. But then again, they were busy drinking. And so what I know now about alcohol and how it works, I can understand how that happened to them.
Hmm.
I completely understand how that happened to them. There's no judgment in it. There used to be. I used to be very angry about it. And now I just think, oh, well, this is how alcohol works. And it's an addictive substance. And the human body is designed to become addicted to it. So when you drink it, it some people think of it like like it's a disease.
Hmm.
And I think of it more like it's a gene that's turning on. Like all humans are susceptible to being addicted to alcohol. It's not a flaw or a disease that some people have and others don't. It's a design issue. That's just how our brains are designed.
When did you feel it got to an extreme level of drugs and alcohol? Or did anyone kind of point it out that you have gone really far that it could get dangerous?
Here's another super interesting thing. There's a big myth out there that what people perceive as dangerous drinking, or in air quotes, an alcoholic, and there's a reason I put that in air quotes. The truth is it's alcohol use disorder, and it's a spectrum. And we want to believe that drinking alcohol is safe, and in fact it's healthy in some ways, which I can offer you the science that would prove that it isn't. And we want to believe that the people who run into trouble with alcohol are because they're weak-willed or they're immoral, and if they just tried harder or loved their children more, that wouldn't have happened to them. And the reality is it's a spectrum from very mild to very severe. And the people in the top 10% most severe are physically addicted, and they would need medical intervention to safely stop drinking, because it could kill you if you are physically addicted and you just stop. The other 90% are psychologically addicted. And so that's like my parents coming home and having a drink at the end of each day. So for me, I didn't lose any jobs. I didn't get a DUI. I did not lose relationships. I was very successful, happy, functioning in the world, relatively healthy, all things considered. The problem was my life was just getting sad and small, because as alcohol became more and more a part of it,
Mm-hmm.
it was literally sucking the joy out of my life. And I didn't realize that until I was in my probably 50s, late 40s, 50s. And I realized that I thought if I quit drinking, I would never have fun. And yet all I was doing at night was sitting in front of Netflix and drinking a bottle of wine. And I knew it was too much. And I previously in my life, if I decided to stop drinking, I would just stop drinking, piece of cake, just stop. And that wasn't a problem. And I thought, no big deal, I'll just stop. Well, guess what, Alex? That's not how alcohol works.
Yeah.
Once you get psychologically addicted to it, you don't just stop. And what the belief is that the solution for that is to, you ask someone, how do you change a habit? Well, you just change it. You just stop doing it. And then when you fail, so I'd say, okay, today I'm not drinking. And then at 5 o'clock at night, I would have a glass of wine in my hand and I would rationalize it in some way. And I'd wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning with just shame and guilt. And oh my God, what is wrong with me? Wake up a little later in the morning and say, okay, today I quit. And that was how people quit, right?
Yeah.
Or you went to AA. Those were your choices. And what I learned is that the way to quit is through self-compassion. And the way to quit is through learning about the substance, and through knowledge and self-compassion, I was able to look at what I was doing and understand my belief system around it. And I decided I simply didn't want to do it anymore. No shame, no guilt. People ask me, oh, so you never get to drink again? I'm like, well, also I never have to put a stick in my eye. Like, I don't want to. I can drink as much as I want whenever I want. I do not want to. And this is a revolution coming. The way we model behavior change is changing. It's backed by neuroscience. And one of the biggest myths is that your choice when you quit is to either, well, your choices are, you can quit and be miserable because you have to give up the people and things that you love. But you can't do those anymore because alcohol would be around. Or you keep drinking and kill yourself. And I'm here to tell you there's another choice. You can learn about the substance, stop drinking, and recognize that it was stealing your joy. And when you stop, you get your joy back.
I want to bring up something you mentioned where alcohol, like if you're in a social setting and alcohol, it's like you have to be a part of it or things like that. And I grew up in at college in a fraternity where alcohol is all over the place. But I had the personal decision to say, I don't need to drink to have fun. And if my friends can't respect that decision, they're not my friends. And what made those friendships more valuable is they realized my choice of not doing it. And they still wanted me to be a part of it, knowing that I can have fun if I'm drinking a Diet Dr. Pepper or something. I can enjoy and have fun in a party with not drinking. I also looked at it as I was kind of like the dad figure and I'm wanting to make sure everyone's okay, but it didn't make me lose that fun from not having it. And I think a lot of people can relate to both of our experiences when it comes to that, because especially with college, it's like that time where it's like, kind of like how we talked about with TV and movies and stuff, they show, oh, you have to go hardcore, you have to party and stuff, but it's really with choices that you make. And you have gone through that experience, and it's valuable that people are hearing from your point of view what you went through when it comes to it.
I often wonder, had I known how dangerous alcohol is, would I have drunk like I did?
Hmm.
The only thing I could come up with is that I never smoked because I knew how dangerous cigarettes were. And alcohol is a class 1A carcinogen, the same as cigarettes.
Okay.
And I wonder if I knew that, what difference that would have made. So it's so important to me to speak out and let people know, hey, you're being lied to, that alcohol is safe.
Hmm.
There's a great Huberman lab on alcohol. And if anybody's interested in how it affects our body, he does a fantastic job of explaining what the consequences of drinking are. It's related to breast cancer, esophageal cancer, colorectal cancer, heart disease. The World Heart Association says 0 amount of alcohol is safe. And it is, obviously liver disease and fatty liver and all of that. It's a super interesting molecule. Well, here's something that blew my mind. I'm glad you're sitting down. The chemical formula for the alcohol that we drink is the same substance that you put in your car, ethanol. Like, is that wild? Like, whoa.
I think if people heard that, they probably some things would be start spinning in their mind, and like they'd be thinking a little bit differently when it comes to it.
Right, at least respect it a little more. Like,
Yeah.
holy smokes. And what's super interesting about it is it's both fat and water soluble. So it gets into every nook and cranny of your body.
Yeah.
It goes through, straight into the brain. I forgot to mention it's linked to dementia. It creates holes in your gut, so you get leaky gut. And it is toxic to the point that your body literally shuts down everything it's doing to get the alcohol out of the system. It stops digesting. If you are an athlete, it stops your recovery. Somebody did a study in Australia, football players, and the players that drank after their workout, and they did muscle biopsies to follow this along, were recovering 37% more slowly than the people who didn't drink.
I mean, that's a good study because those athletes, especially Australian football, I mean, they're training hard, and especially with their physicality in their sports, they need that recovery time.
Oh yeah, and I run a race, and there's always beer at the end of the race.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, you go to a breast cancer fundraiser, and it's all often like pink bubbly and breast cancer, and I'm just pulling my hair out like, oh my god, do you know the link between cancer, breast cancer, and alcohol? Like, are we getting pink cigarettes next? Is that the the little next?
I hope not. I hope not.
We may as well be. So yeah, it was really eye-opening to find out that there were such health risks, and I didn't know. You didn't know?
No.
We didn't know. We didn't know. Yeah.
You talked about how with alcohol, it didn't really hurt like jobs and things like that. What kind of path were you going from a career standpoint at that time?
Had so much fun in my life. And I was my first job was babysitting, and then I don't know, did you detassel in Missouri? Detassel corn?
Mm-mm.
Oh, in Illinois, we detassel corn in the cornfields at like 14.
Oh, wow.
I know that needs to be on my resume only because it proves I'm such a badass that I could be in cornfields 12 hours a day in August in Illinois. So I did computers, and then in my 20s, I experienced absolutely devastating depression. And I had some trauma when I was growing up. that kids shouldn't have had to deal with, and depression to the point that it was life-threatening. And finally, it was not easy. Finding a good therapist was very hard. I honestly, a therapist once, it was my first meeting with him, and he said that I was feeling guilt because I had enjoyed being raped.
Oh,
Oh, and at least I was smart enough to go, fluff you, buddy.
wow.
I know, right?
I would have walked out right out of the room.
I was too stunned. I was just, I did not go back to him. He called me up, and he was upset that I wasn't making another appointment because he figured I needed his help. I'm like, no.
Not after that comment.
No. I mean, I'm sure that some people experience pleasure because our bodies are our bodies, right?
Hmm.
But I wouldn't tack that on someone without asking first.
Yeah.
So I had a very hard time finding a good therapist. And by the time I found one, I was so depressed. I was just barely hanging on to life. And I made the decision that if I lived through that, which I obviously did, I was really going to live life on my terms.
Mhm.
And I decided that when I turned 30, it was going to be the year of no personal growth. It was so awesome. I was not going to do anything hard. I'd been in therapy for 5 years. So I saved all my money and I went to Southeast Asia for 5 months. And then instead of going back to computers, I went and became a raft guide and whitewater canoe instructor.
Ooh,
I know, it was so fun.
that sounds fun.
That was fun down at the Nantahala Outdoor Center in Bryson City, North Carolina. Yeah, brilliant, brilliant work. And after that, I had a business partner and we designed and built houses.
Oh,
And then I had a startup company with my husband that completely failed. Learned a lot, but failure is hard.
mm-hmm.
And then when I quit drinking, I was doing a lot of volunteer work with people who were struggling with alcohol. And there was an opportunity for me to join a coaching program. And so I did. And I am. And I love my coaching job. So now I help people find out that quitting alcohol isn't the hardest thing you're ever going to do. It doesn't have to be miserable quitting. It's not easy, but it doesn't have to be miserable. And you can love your life afterwards. And if you're not having fun, I don't know if you know this, joy is a skill. It can be learned. So if you're
Yeah.
looking around thinking, wow, I'm not having any fun, you just need skills.
Yeah.
So
What
there you have it.
that's definitely a wide range path that you've been on, which is not a bad thing because I always feel that you should try anything out there. I mean, like if you're doing one thing, try to learn something as you're doing that other thing at the same time because, like you mentioned, that skill that you're learning could be so much fun, and then you want to go into that direction. But I think a lot of what you talked about you kind of took skills from one area to the next area to the next area. Even though it might be in a completely different industry, you still learned from each. Even the failure of the startup company, you took that and you didn't let that stop you. So you were rising the challenge even throughout your journey, going through the positives and the failures. With your sobriety, your journey through it, if you could describe it in one word that reflects your emotions towards it, your physicality towards it, the mindset you have towards it. How would you describe that? Even if it's not one word, a few words.
Joy.
Okay.
I saw a meme the other day and it referred to being alcohol free as wings.
Okay.
Yes, it's my wings. Here's a super interesting thing Brene Brown said that I love. Brene Brown's been alcohol free for, I don't know, 25, 30 years, something like that. One of the biggest reasons we use alcohol is to numb our pain.
Yeah.
And it does that. Well, it does that for a short period of time. But you cannot selectively numb.
Mm-hmm.
I said this to a client recently, and I thought he was going to cry. Just a beautiful human being and not having a lot of joy in his life right now. And I explained to him how alcohol was literally crushing the joy out of his life. And he was so mad. And it really made me mad when I found that out as well. It's almost predatory. I'm not even going to say almost. It is a predatory substance because it's promising you fun.
Mm-hmm.
When in fact, what's happening in our bodies is we take a drink and it goes straight up into our reward center. And we get this 20-minute hit of euphoria. Like, woohoo, dopamine. Yes, endorphins are firing. This is so awesome. And then your brain's out of balance. And it says, oh, that's not good. I need to be in balance. So it gives you a 3-hour smackdown of not feel good chemicals. So you got your 20 minutes of woohoo, your brain goes, uh-oh. And then you got 2 to 3 hours of, oh no. And that is cortisol, adrenaline, dynorphin. And that's for each drink. So there's like a 2 to 3 hour sentence for each drink that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you started out with, you were having a marginal day, and let's say you'd give it a 6, and then it went up to an 8 with that first 20 minutes, it's dumping down to a 5 or a 4.
Yep.
And this is why it's addictive. This is why I say we are designed to become addicted to alcohol. Then our subconscious says, golly, I don't feel good anymore. Oh, got it. Good idea. You know what worked great was that thing that gave me the endorphins. I'm going to have another drink.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you get in that tail chasing. And another interesting thing about it is it trashes, and this is just one drink, it trashes your sleep in that you don't get your last 2 cycles of sleep. And in those last 2 cycles are your REM cycles, the really long REM cycles, 40 to 50 minutes. Those last 2 cycles are where you process the previous day's emotions. And so not only have you just dumped a whole bunch of I don't feel good chemicals into your body, if you were suffering from anxiety, you're not processing anything. So you've made your anxiety worse, you've made your depression worse, and whatever happened yesterday isn't processing through. So you really get stuck. And that's why I say it is squashing your joy. It's promised you, like an abusive lover, oh, baby, I'm going to make you feel so good. And then it smacks you down, and then it says, oh, but I won't ever do that again.
Yeah.
Promise.
So if someone's not listening to the video version of this, behind Lily is a sign that says, this is our happy place. Talk about the meaning of that sign, because I think a lot of people can utilize that quote in their lives today.
Oh, I saw this sign at my nursery, and I had to have it. I just absolutely had to have it. And I have it in my background because it's easy to believe. This is where I sit and work with my clients for them to find their alcohol freedom. And many of these people are in pain, and they have challenges to overcome, and they have skills that they need to learn. We use alcohol to solve problems for us. So if you don't know how to relax, you use alcohol to relax. Mm-hmm. So it can be uncomfortable being in that place where you have to learn these skills. It's a very vulnerable place, but people forget to have fun.
Yep.
like sometimes you just need to have fun and remember that we're doing this because we want that happiness and that peace in our life. We're not doing it, at least that's why I'm doing it. I think that sometimes we have the wrong goal. When we quantify our goals by accomplishing a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to my mom about this, and she has dementia, and she can't remember a lot of things, but she still can have a pretty philosophical conversation. And one of the first things she lost was the ability to tell time. It was so adorable. She calls me up and said, "When did they change the way you tell time?"
Oh,
Thought, oh, that's weird, because I didn't hear that. We looked, I mean, I'm like really thinking, did we change? I didn't know that this dementia was coming up. And she can get very upset that she can't do something.
mm-hmm.
And the conversation I had with her was around, Mom, is it important that you can tell time, or is it important that you enjoyed your day? And if the goal is joy, then it doesn't really matter if you can tell time. Now we've got Alexa set up. I used to have to call her every day at lunch to tell her to go to lunch. Now we have Alexa set up, and Alexa tells her. I just, and she responded to that so beautifully. She was like, oh, right. And some of the questions I ask my clients are, is being upset about something helping you? Is it solving the problem?
Yeah.
And if it's not, and the next question is, are you enjoying it? If the answer is no, then don't carry it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We often carry one of the biggest barriers to going alcohol free is shame, because the belief is culturally, and it's so embedded in us. I mean, like you got to go to a meeting and stand up in front of people and announce you are an alcoholic. Like, I am, that's all I am. And the belief being, therefore my life is over, and this is it. I'm spending the rest of it in meetings. If your goal is to quit drinking, then that's different than if your goal is to have joy. In one, I'm just stopping doing something, and in the other, I'm headed for something.
Mm-hmm.
And when you learn, oh, it's actually, this lady's got the science, they can show you why it is numbing everything, not just the pain. If you're headed for happiness, you're more likely to be successful at finding happiness.
Mm-hmm.
You can't fail at that goal. There is no failure. If I didn't have a great day, then I might just spend some time reflecting on, wow, how could I make tomorrow better?
Yeah.
But not shaming myself and saying I'm bad and I don't have any self-control and I obviously don't care about important things. I care more about alcohol. None of that's true. So that's why I like that sign, because it reminds us our goal, or my goal in my life, is happiness and joy, and spreading that to other people.
Something our listeners like is to learn even more about our guests. When you're not working, what does Lily like to do for fun?
Gardening.
You
My flowers.
have like a big garden bed outside?
I have many big garden beds. We bought a house. I live in British Columbia, and I overlook the Whistler Mountains and the Salish Sea, Howe Sound. And my yard was, whoever had this house before must have been a master gardener. It's just gorgeous. I got walls of rhododendrons, like 60-year-old. I must have 40 of them in my yard. So in the spring, this place is just lit up with flowers, and I cut them and put them all over the house. I think I have 6 or 7 vases of fresh flowers. So
Wow.
when I moved in, I put in a lot of cut gardens where the goal is the flowers that I put in there are specific, so I can cut them and give them to friends and have them in the house. And I also love my husband and my dog, and I spent a lot of
Oh.
time running in the woods. I'm a real animal nut. I don't know if you've seen the guy on TikTok that does the white woman isn't afraid of shit. It's really funny. He's talking about how white women are always like finding stray animals and adopting them. And he makes me laugh so hard because I am that white woman.
Is there an animal that you've seen that you wish you could adopted?
My husband has said no to the baby bat, the baby elephant. I know. The baby goats. I do foster. I in fact just brought a foster cat in this morning to get spayed, and she had her litter, and I do foster kittens.
Aw.
And I run, and I love being healthy. To me, that's power. So I eat very well. Which takes time. I have a coach for my running who I love. I broke my arm on a run last year, and she gave me 3 days off. I'm like, okay, get walking. I'm like, okay, I can walk. I had my little bundled wing, and I walked around the block slowly. So yeah, animals, husband. I met a Canadian when I was 45. I married him. Smartest thing I ever did. If you can find a Canadian to marry, do it.
The final question I'll ask you, for someone that's listened to this interview based on your journey and experience, what tips or advice would you give them to overcome obstacles, accomplish their goals, and rise to the challenge?
Oh, wow. Knowledge is often the key, and self-compassion. Because I think that when you're stuck, you just don't know something. So, and you need to keep looking and asking. I talked earlier about my quest for a therapist. It took a long time. It took several years to find one that worked for me, but it was really worth doing. And just don't forget to have fun sometimes. Like, look up and take a rest from the work, because sometimes we think it's such an emergency, but just like our muscles, when we lift weights, our muscles, they don't get bigger during the weightlifting, they get bigger during the rest. And so don't forget to take those rests and watch funny TikTok animal videos.
Well, Lily, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about your rise to the challenge. You're inspiring so many people, and we are excited to see what the future looks like for you.
Oh, thank you. I really loved this.
Tune in next time to hear my next guest talk about their rise to the challenge. Remember to follow and subscribe on all major audio platforms. And make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get a full-length episode in video format. What path do you take to accomplish your goals? You decide.